Great to be here, and hope this will be a good presentation for everybody. I've called it "Who's the Wife?" Because a lot of times when we're doing family history, it's important to find out who the mother or wife of the family is in order to take the pedigree back another generation. And also, for my purpose today, it's to try and sort out families on a family search. So, like I said, for the most part, when genealogists do try and find the wife's name, they are doing it to find go back in their pedigree. But today, the primary purpose is to show how identifying a wife and mother's maiden name is vital in constructing and deconstructing families on family search. I'll start with the general principles, and then I'm going to look at a problem family and kind of walk you through how I untangle it step by step. First of all, I'm assuming that most of you have done some kind of genealogy before on family search, and that you've done some kind of family history research, especially in England. As you can see, my subtitle here is Finding 19th Century Maiden Names in England Using Marriage Records, the GRO, maps, censuses, and just plain common sense. So my examples are, as I mentioned here, from England, but some of the principles can be applied to other countries. Hopefully you'll forgive some anachronisms, especially in the clothing, and also the fact that I'm piggybacking on a couple of other presentations I've done before where I've used this example, this first example. This example was a case of deconstructing a family on family search, family tree, and I documented it very well, which is why I chose to use it. Having said that, it's really not unique. I come upon similar situations in family search almost daily. So let's jump in. Here is an amazing couple, William and Sarah Beaumont. William and Sarah Beaumont were like I say, a really amazing couple. William was born in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire. He and Sarah were married in Bristol. They had 23 children. Some were in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire, where William was born. Some were in Yorkshire, Rotherham, Thornhill, and Bolby-cum-Hexthorpe. And some children were born in Cambridgeshire, in Swavesey and Stoke-on-Quay. And a somewhat fictitious version of this family appeared on the 1851 and 1861 census in London. Clearly, this was not all one family. There were, in fact, 6 different William and Sarah Beaumont couples that were all combined. Some inexperienced researchers not realizing that it is possible for several men called William Beaumont to marry a wife called Sarah, a woman called Sarah, merged several families together. They assumed that there was only one William and Sarah Beaumont in the whole of England, and they attached all 23 children to them. In fact, there was more than 23 children as I detangled it, but at that point there were 23 children attached. This whole mixed up family could have been avoided had they found the maiden surname of the mothers that were called Sarah, and added them, and also checked the places of birth of the family members. I'll show the finished results of these 6 William and Sarah Beaumont families as I continue on. So you can just watch, but you can listen as well. So, correct places of birth or christening are essential when deconstructing or constructing a family. In past centuries in England, most people lived in the towns or villages where they were born, or at least neighboring towns. As a rule, parents did not have children in one village, then have children in another village, and then move to another county, then back to the original place. Children born all over the country, or even all over a county, is usually a red flag that something is wrong. So here are those families now reconstructed, as you can see. Along with the place, it's most important to know what the wife or mother's maiden name is. Usually a mother is added when the children are added, and they're from the baptism. So it gives the father's name, full name, but only the mother's first name. So, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place a minute. Some people add the mother's maiden name as like Sarah Beaumont, William and Sarah Beaumont. They'll put Sarah Beaumont in as the mother's name. Some people will just put Sarah. It's probably wise just to put Sarah rather than Sarah Beaumont, because the algorithms for the family search will go out and look for a Sarah Beaumont who is married to a William Beaumont, rather than a Sarah, whose last name we don't know, married to a William Beaumont. So it's wise just to put in Sarah rather than Sarah Beaumont. But even better than that is to do a little research and see if you can find the maiden name of the mother when you're putting the children in. That's the best strategy. First of all, I'm going to look at some general principles. No matter how unusual the name of your ancestor, it's more than likely, probably almost 100% certain, that there is another person with that same name. One reason for this is that in a town or a village, brothers gave their children familial names. They all named their children the same family names as each other, and a lot of those children were born at the same time. And so you get cousins that living in the same town with the same names, and it's sometimes very difficult to distinguish who is who. Couple this with the fact that the English, I'm sorry, had no, I'm English, so I can say this. The English had no imagination when it came to first names. You get the same names over and over again. So male names, William, Thomas, George, Henry, Robert, etc. And female names, Mary and Sarah and Elizabeth and Martha and Anne. And so, like I said before, it results in several cousins in the same town all having the same name. And that can be a real problem. Here's an example of this. As a few days ago, I was adding a grandchild to the William Beaumont and Sarah Thompson family that I had found. Her name was Hilda Spate. I thought that was kind of an unusual name, but in spite of that, I was, and she died at an early age, but in spite of that, I kept getting hints from Family Search that didn't seem to fit the profile of this child. So I decided to check on the GRO. Now I'll explain a little bit about what the GRO is. The GRO is a name given to the civil registration in the United States. I mean, not United Kingdom, sorry. The GRO is or was the government agency responsible for recording births, deaths, and marriages. And so there is a site, a website, where they have births and deaths. No marriages, unfortunately, on that site. But births and deaths are listed on a site. There's an index. So I decided to get, and here's the URL if you need that, if you need to get to that site. So I decided I'd get on the GRO and check out these children, this child, Hilda Spate. I thought, it's an unusual name. I want to just do a double check. It's always good to double check. And it was after 1837, so I was safe. The GRO started in 1837. And so anything after that should be there. So you go to search the GRO indexes, as you can see right there. And it will give you a person's full name. It will give the year and the quarter of birth. It will also give the registration district, which is very important, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And this is a great thing. This is the birth index. It gives the mother's maiden name. That wasn't always the case, but now it does give the mother's maiden name. So it really, really helps you to know and tie down the mother's maiden name. And then the last thing it gives you is a reference to order a certificate. And, you know, some people think, oh, I don't want to spend money. It's not that much to order a certificate. And if it's something that you've struggled with for a while, it's definitely worth ordering them. You can order them for about £7, which is only about, $10. And they will send it to you in a PDF. So you can get it quite quickly. I usually about 4-day turnaround. So it's for those special ones that you want to know, that's a good way to get the information. So anyway, I plugged in Hilda Spate's name in the GRO. And interestingly enough, I put in exact matches only. I've got to get my little, hold on just a second. I need to get my laser pointer. I plugged in exact matches only here, which is I usually don't do, but I thought, well, with a name like that, I'm sure there's only one. Well, that was interesting because I came up with 6 Hilda Spates within a 5-year period. So this is plus or minus 2 years from 1888. I came up with 6, and that is crazy. I thought that was crazy. And 5 of those 6 were in Yorkshire. So realize that a lot of times last names are very territorial. You may find a lot of Spates in this area, but you might not find any of them somewhere else. So be aware of that. So there's the Hilda Spate right there that I was looking for, the one that had the mother of Beaumont, whose mother's name was Beaumont. She was the daughter of the William and Beaumont and Sarah Thompson. So armed with this information about the fact that there were that many Hilda Spate in that short of a time period, I thought, well, what about William Beaumont? I wonder how many William Beaumonts there were born within a certain time period. So to do that, I went to FreeBMD. FreeBMD is a UK charitable organization, and it's a website, and it basically does the same thing as the GRO, except its parameters are a little better in some ways. So you can search for years and years. You don't have the 5-year problem or 5-year span like on the GRO. You can do the year and plus or minus that year. But on the FreeBMD, you can do many, many years. So I thought that would be better. The disadvantage of the FreeBMD, as far as the births go, is you don't get the mother's maiden name. So you won't get the mother's maiden name. But I thought, well, I'm just curious as to how many William Beaumonts were born within a certain time period. So I went to FreeBMD and I plugged it in. And this is what I got. William Beaumont, William Beaumont, FreeBMD births from September quarter 1837 to December quarter 1857. So about 20 years. And there were 347 William Beaumonts born in England during that time period. Then I decided to carry it just a little further on, a little farther, and I looked at the 20 years from that date and for another 20-year period and plugged in how many marriages of a William Beaumont there was to a wife whose name was Sarah. And there were 34 William and Sarah Beaumont couples within that 20-year period. So you can see that even my 6 William and Sarah Beaumonts were just a portion of the ones that were actually there on the indexes. So it's not unusual to have someone with a name like William Beaumont marry several people, marry women called Sarah, obviously. So what are some strategies for finding those that wife's or mother's maiden name? Marriage records are often the best, obviously. Sometimes they're the only record where the mother's maiden name is recorded. So look for a marriage record shortly before or around the time of the birth or christening of the first child. It will usually be before the birth or christening of the first child, but not always. And it sometimes is not a whole 9 months before. It's only sometimes a few months before the child is born. So here we see William and Sarah Beaumont, and they're getting married on the 1st of December, 1833, with their first son. And their first son, John, being christened about 6 months later. So that just kind of shows that sometimes that does happen. I think you can see that. I'm not, yeah, there you go. There's John. Okay, the family group here on Family Search looks complete as you look at it. The parents were married in 1848. This is a different one, I believe. Yeah, this is a different one, but a different William Beaumont, but also married to Sarah. And so here he is. They are born they're married in 1848. It looks like their first child is born in 1849, and everything looks pretty good. However, when I checked them out on the 1851 census, I found William Beaumont and his wife Sarah, but there was a son Charles. There's Sarah Jane right there. There's a son Charles that was born, that was 5 years old, and this is in 1851. So he would have been born in 1846. So that was interesting. So it looks like he was born probably out of wedlock. We'll come back to Charles in just a minute. And so just keep him in mind. We're going to look at marriage records right now. A pre-1837 marriage record will show the couple, and you can see William Beaumont here, Sarah Platt's here. It will show their place of residence, and in this case it's this parish. The parish is listed up at the top, but no fathers are mentioned in this on the pre-1837 marriage records. So it's always good to look at who signed as witnesses right here. If you can figure them out, that's probably S. Beaumont and John Beaumont. So they probably are relatives of the couple, but it's not always the case. It doesn't always go that way. Sometimes it's just a signer that signs many different marriages. So you have to kind of look for that. So it isn't terribly helpful. After 1837, the marriage records look a lot better. You've got the name of the groom, the name of the bride. You've got their age. Sometimes it will give their actual age. If they're over 21, it will just say sometimes just full age, or in this case, both of full age. It tells their condition, whether they were a bachelor, a spinster, or if they were widowed, their occupation, where they lived at the time of the marriage, and it gives their fathers' names, Joseph Beaumont in this case, and Robert Tanner in that case. And it also gives the father's occupation, which can be very helpful sometimes. Obviously, Joseph Beaumont was a butcher, and Robert Tanner was a plumber. Also notice the witnesses right here who signed. They are probably relatives, and sometimes that can help sort out who's who. Always check those out. Now, one of the problems I see as I, I'm sorry, I just keep losing my place. Okay, one of the problems I see is sometimes is that people get on and assume, they find their ancestor and assume that that's all they need to do, and they only put them in, and they assume that he or she is the only child or the first child. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I know that sounds pretty elementary, but I see it time and time again. The child you're related to could be the middle child, it could be the youngest child, and a researcher looks for just their ancestor, and they don't look at the rest of the family, and attaches the wrong parents based on the date or christening of that one child. So it's important to construct the whole family, not just follow the child you descend from. So look for other children. Along with that, don't assume that the first child listed on the census is the first child. There could be children who died before the census shows them, or before the census was even taken, the first census. The couple could have many children before the first census. Look at the age of the parents. Most people started having children in their early 20s. If the couple are in their 50s, by the time you see them on the first census, the only child and only one child is living with them, then it's probably their youngest child because they're getting older. I know that sounds so elementary, but I see over and over again people not being careful about that. Children can give clues to their mother's maiden name. Often, at least one child in the family has their mother's maiden name as a given name, or sometimes, more often probably, as a middle name. So use that name to search for the wife or mother that married someone with the father's last name. So now I said we were going to return to Charles Beaumont. So here we are. He's now added to family search. There's Sarah Jane. She appeared on the 1851 census, but so did Charles, as like I say, probably an illegitimate child. As he was born after 1837, I thought I would look him up on the GRO too. I thought that would be a good thing. He was christened. It said on the 51 census he was born in 1846, but he was christened in 1849. And it looks like his middle name, that name of Champney, might be the maiden name of his mother. So I went to this is another principle that's very important. You need to go, when you go to check the GRO, you need to check the registration district in which that town where they're born is located. So this is Bowlby with Hexthorpe. It's sometimes Bowlby cum Hexthorpe. Cum means with. And the registration district, as you can see, it's kind of hard to see, is Doncaster. So if I'm looking for him, I need to check if he was christened in Bowlby cum Hexthorpe. He probably was born in the Doncaster registration district, and that's probably where they registered him. So I need to look for him there. So as you can see, I looked, and in checking, I didn't find any Charles Beaumont there in the GRO. Now, this could be because of a couple of reasons. Number one is that in 1837, when the GRO started, the General Register Office started, many people did not register their births at first. In fact, if you go to some of the parish records in 1837, you'll see pages and pages and pages of couples, mothers and fathers, baptizing all their kids so that they don't have to register them. They didn't really quite, I get the concept at first. They thought, oh, I'll just take them and get them christened and that'll count. Well, it wasn't quite the same, but it didn't catch on for quite a while that they needed to register their children. In fact, in 1874, there was an act passed that said that they needed to pay, require them to pay if they didn't register their children in a timely way. And so that kind of spurred things. And so after 1875, it's pretty accurate. But it could be that before then, people weren't as diligent in registering their children. And so you may not find the child in the GRO. In this particular case, so there was another thing that I thought. Okay, so he was born probably illegitimately because they weren't married until 1848. And so I thought to myself, well, I wonder if he's under Champney and not Beaumont. So I went to the GRO and I looked under Charles Champney, and you'll notice there's Charles Champney, and he's in the Doncaster area in the registration district, and he's born in 1846, and there's a dash for his mother's name. And if you see that dash, it usually means the child had the mother's name, and they just put a dash for the mother's name because the child was illegitimate. So the Champney, was used as his middle name. And often if you go to a baptism and christening record, if a child is illegitimate, I shouldn't say more often than not, but a lot of times you will find the mother lists the father's surname as the middle name, and so that they identify the father at least in some way. So that's a good clue. Okay, so are there any questions so far? Maybe I should stop for just a minute. I don't know. I can't see the chat. Elder Farnsworth, do you have any questions that have come so far?
One of the earlier ones asked if I have to get back to it, sorry.
The GRO was included the Isle of Man.
That's the one.
Good question. I don't believe it did. I think it's just England and Wales. Yeah, I think it's just England and Wales. I think the Isle of Man has their own. I haven't done much research on the Isle of Man. I know Scotland's not included for sure. And but I think it's just England and Wales.
And is Scotland similar, even though it's not in the GRO?
No, actually Scotland didn't start their civil registration until quite a bit later. They started it in 1855, which is a real disadvantage actually. There's almost a 20-year, lag there between Scotland when they started their civil registration and England. But England and Wales both started in 1837. I don't think that it does include the Isle of Wight. Yeah, but not the Isle of Man. Okay. All right. So a good rule of thumb when trying to distinguish a child in the GRO is to use a child that was born as late as you possibly can, with having talked about the fact that, the closer you get to 1837, the more likely it is that you won't, well, it isn't more likely that you won't find it, but it's, you won't find them. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. There's a chance that you might not find them. But the closer you get to 1875, the better the chance you have of finding them. So I decided I wasn't going to just leave it at Charles Champney Beaumont there. I was going to also look for one of his siblings. And it's always good to look for someone that has a more unusual name, or maybe a middle name as well. So I looked at that list and I thought, yeah, Mary Elizabeth Beaumont has got two names. So maybe we'd be able to find her as well, just to solidify that, yes, this Sarah Beaumont was indeed a Champney. So I went to the GRO again, and there you go. There's in Doncaster, there's Mary Elizabeth Beaumont with the mother's maiden name of Champney. So I was pretty sure then, as suspected, Sarah's maiden name was Champney. And so I put her in, and interestingly enough, there's Charles, there's Mary Elizabeth, and there's Elizabeth's mother, and Sarah has her mother's maiden name as her middle name. So it was kind of looks like it was almost a family tradition, because she ended up with her mother's middle name. So that worked out well. Here is the a sad part of the story. I think it's 7 of the children. 7 children of that family died as infants, died young. There's Charles Champney Beaumont right there, and there's Mary Elizabeth right there. And then there's 5 others that died. You can't read them all, but they also died young, so didn't make it to adulthood. Kind of sad when you think about some of the difficulties they had in those days. Okay, some important hints about searching the GRO site. Now, I want to mention that they have just barely, actually, I probably within the past 2 or 3 days, changed the search experience there. You used to have similar sounding names and then phonetically similar variations, but the similar sounding names is not there anymore. So you just always use the phonetically similar variations search. If you use the exact search, you probably won't come up with near as many good results. I always use the phonetically similar name search. Then always use the plus or minus a couple of years right there. So you can put the year that you think, and then plus 2 years and minus 2 years. And that gives you a 5-year span. And especially if you're going by dates from the census, which are notoriously bad, sometimes they're really off by 2, 3 years sometimes. And I've seen even worse than that, but always use a range, a birth range. If you have too many hits when you plug in the phonetically similar variations, you can put in the register. If you're pretty sure you know the registration district, you can put that in, and that will limit your search too, and maybe bring up the right results. You just have to try several different things. If you have no luck finding your person, try just using the surname. Sometimes children use, or parents called their children, they gave them 2 names, and they use their middle name all the time. And so it's the middle name that shows up on the census and not the first name. And so sometimes that will throw you a loop, throw a loop in your search. So just try just a surname search, and a lot of times that will help, and you can bring it up. Like I say, it will bring up more hits, but you can sift through them pretty quickly. Most of the time, it's not enough to just check for one child on the GRO, just like I did with Charles Champney Beaumont. You need to check several children just to make sure they all have the same maiden name, because sometimes, and I've come across this many times, the husband will remarry, and he'll remarry someone with the same name, the same first name as his first wife. So he'll marry a Sarah, and then his next wife will be a Sarah as well. And they might not, so you do kind of need to check all the children and find that the maiden name is consistent for all of them. Censuses can be a gold mine in piecing together families. It is important to look at I can't stress this enough. It's important to look at every census for every member of the family. I know that's a bit of a pain sometimes, but you never know what little piece of information you're going to find by looking at all of them. Inevitably, widowed mother-in-law, father-in-law, or brother-in-law, or unmarried sister-in-law will end up living with the husband of the woman that you're looking for. So be cautious here. If the daughter's father died at a young age, her mother could have remarried, and therefore it would not be the maiden name of her daughter. So that brings me to a side note. Another possibility, if you can't find the marriage of the couple, is to research to see if the husband died early, the first husband. If so, the wife often remarried. And if she remarried after 1837, then you can find her father's name listed on the marriage certificate, the second marriage certificate. So here's an example of that. Here's a second marriage of Sarah Beaumont, whose maiden name was Platt. It shows her, obviously they use her married name of her first husband as her name when she marries a second husband. So you don't always know, but you can see right there that John Platt is listed as her father, and she's listed as a widow. So that can give you the name of the father at least. So now that we've talked about some of the principles and strategies for finding the wife or mother's maiden name, in this next part, we'll go through some steps to deconstruct a mixed up family. A good place to start is the change log. I usually look at it and see where the things have started to get mixed up and see if I can restore things easily. But sometimes, to be honest, it only serves to confuse me more. And so I'm not going to tackle the change log today. I think Catherine Grant has talked about that, some of her presentations, and maybe you can refer to those. So I'm just going to jump into the example and just kind of walk you step by step of how I deconstruct these mixed up families and how I find them in the first place, actually. So I'm looking at Charlotte Stadton, who married Elias Court Cole. Isn't it great? He has a really distinctive name, Elias, and the Court and the Cole. So I don't think there's going to be too hard to find him. At least, having said that, yeah, it isn't too hard to find him. And they have, as you can see, they have 5 children here, listed here. This is confirmed but I found Charlotte on the 1911 England census, which lists how many children they had, which is 5. How many have died? 1 has died, and 4 are still living. It also lists how many years have been married, 45 years. So the 1911 census can be very useful if they live that long. So I still don't have the marriage date, however. If you notice, there's no marriage there, no marriage event. So I wanted to find that. So I went to find my past, and I plugged in Elias Court Cole. I could have plugged in Charlotte Stadton, but I thought that name might not be quite as distinctive. And as you can see, Elias Court comes up first two entries here on Find My Past. And indeed, I did find their marriage. In fact, I found what's even better, an original marriage certificate. If you can find the original, always look at it. It just, I don't know how many times there's been transcription errors that have led me down a garden path, or a lot of time, pretty much always, the original has more information than the transcription. So if you can look at the original, always check the original. A transcription, for example, does not have, it lists most of the vital information, but it doesn't list the witnesses on a transcription. And that could be very helpful in figuring out families. And so we see here Elias Court Cole. He's a full age, a bachelor, and then it gives his occupation. And Charlotte Stadton, it says she's a spinster. It gives her residence at the time of marriage as Broadclyst, that's in Devon, and her father was William Stadton, and he was a Thatcher. So that's some good information. So to go back to family search, I went to Charlotte in her family of origin, her original family, not her family when she got married. And it said that she, according to the family search, it said she was born in Broadclyst, Devon, England, United Kingdom, which fits with the census. And it also fit with the 1911, not fit with her marriage, and also the 1911 England census. So I figured this is pretty accurate. That's probably correct. And it says her father is William Stadton, which it said on her marriage certificate. And then it gives her mother's name as Mary Coddle. So we're going to go next. So I felt pretty good about that. Then I thought I would check out some of her other. However, no, let's go back for just a second. There were some things that worried me a little bit about this family. Number one was, it did say that William was married to Mary Coddle, but it gave an about date of 1822 in Wellington, Somerset. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. If they know where, the date, kind of the year range, why wouldn't they know the actual date? That was a bit concerning. Also, John Stadton right here was born in 1820. If the couple were married in 1822, that's a little bit far before the marriage. But, you know, Charles Champney was born 3 years before the marriage, so maybe not. There's some other things that kind of concern me. Was most of the children just have one name, but there were 2 of them right here, James Gardner Stadton and William Thomas Stadton, that had a middle name as well. Nah, it's not serious, but also there were 12 children, which was not very unusual for that particular time period. but there are several that were born close together. This Abraham and Isaac were both born in 1828 and both died in 1828. And then there was George and Anne that were both born in 1836. And then these that were born in quick succession, 1824, 1825, 1826. So I just was a little bit uncertain about this. So I thought I wanted to take on the surface, it doesn't look terrible, but I just wanted to take a better look. And a lot of times that's how it is. On the surface, the family looks pretty good, but then you have to dig a little deeper. So this is usually where I start. The first thing I do is examine each family member and see if there are inconsistencies in the family tree, the family group. Now, normally I would go and do every single child and I'd look at their person page, but because of time, I can't do that here. So I'm just going to pick a few and show you what I found. So we've already looked at Charlotte. Now we're going to look at George. And George was born in, it says 1836 in Broadcliffe, Devon. And that's the same place as Charlotte. And the time is not terrible. It looks like he very well could have been. So he looked good. And like I say, I would look a little bit more carefully. I'd probably go and look at the sources and different things like that. Then I looked at this James Gardner Stadton because I was a little bit concerned about that middle name. And it says that he was born, christened in St. Pancras, Exeter. That's not quite consistent with the Broadcliffe of the other two. Then I looked at William, and it said that he was born in St. Mary Church, Torquay. So that doesn't quite fit either. So let's go to the next thing, which I did was go to the map. This is the 1851 English jurisdictions map. If you've never used this map, there's this map app. It's amazing. It details all the parishes. You can look at contiguous parishes. You can do a radius search of the parishes around. It gives the registration district and all the other jurisdictions. It is really good. If you plug in familysearch.org/map, you can get to that, and it is really good. So I put in over there, as you can see right here, I put in Broadcliffe, and that little blue map pin right there shows me where Broadcliffe is. So that's good to know where that is. However, the other two children, one was born in St. Mary Church and one was born in Exeter. So I plugged those in too. I did plug them into the map, but I'm going to do them on a map pin here. There's Exeter right there, in the middle, kind of. And here's Torquay down here. That doesn't look very likely that one would be born, most of the children are born here and then someone else born in Exeter and then someone else born in Torquay. So I thought, yeah, this needs some investigation, which I love to do. Anyway, so the next thing I would do in this case is I would print out a, I've got to get rid of this little highlighter thing. I would print out a family group sheet. That way you will have all the PID numbers for the family and it lists the places of birth. And I'm just going to go to that right now. You can see there's the husband and the places where he was born. It says that Mary was born in Wellington, Somerset. They were married in Wellington, Somerset, but that, as I said before, was a little bit iffy. There's John being born in Exeter, and there's William being born in St. Mary Church, Torquay. This one looks good, Broadcliffe for John, although the christening place is a little different. There's another one I would question, St. Pancras, Exeter again. William Thomas is another one I would kind of question. I think it's fairly close, but it could be him. So he could be. This one just says she was born in Devon. So that doesn't help a whole lot. There's Elizabeth, born in Broadcliffe. And I think, this one, Anne, was born in St. Mary Church, Torquay. There's Broadcliffe, there's Broadcliffe, there's Broadcliffe, and Broadcliffe. So it's always good to look, I think, at the, just print it out, and then you can write on it as you go through and do things, and then you've got the PID numbers. So William, I wanted to look, see if I could find Charlotte on a census. She was born in 1842, and so I went and I think I found her on the census. There she is, Charlotte, born in Broadclyst, and her brother George that we looked at earlier, also born in Broadclyst, and Mary, born in Wellington, Somerset. So it's looking good. William Stadton, he was born in Stoke Cannon. So that, I think, was probably her, probably Charlotte. However, I still was feeling uneasy about this a little bit, so I decided I would go and look up Charlotte on the GRO, being that she was born in 1842, and she should show up there. So I went to the GRO. Oh yeah, this is showing that George and Charlotte are both members of that family. We know for sure because of the census. So there's Broadclyst. Again, I'm looking for the registration district so I can look her up on the GRO, and the registration district is St. Thomas. So if I find a Charlotte in St. Thomas, it won't prove that it's her for sure, but it will help. So I looked up Charlotte in the GRO, and there were two Charlotte Staddons. One was in Taunton, which is in Somerset, and the other was in St. Thomas, which was the place I wanted. I thought, oh, yay. But then I looked at the mother's maiden name, and it says Percy. That's not Coddle. So then I was a little bit concerned. So I went back to the family group sheet, or family group on Family Search, and I looked to see if there were any other children that would have been born with since 1837 that I could double check. And there was this Abraham and Isaac. They look a bit suspicious to me. Not that their names are suspicious or anything, but they both born in 1838. They both died in 1838. Anyway, so I thought, I'll look at them and see if I can find them. Well, I did find them. There's Abraham and there's Isaac, both in St. Thomas and both in 1838. And their mother's maiden name is Percy. Percy, not Coddle. Now I'm getting worried at this point. So I went to check and see if they died. This is the death index on the GRO. And yes, indeed, Abraham, there he is right there at the top. And Isaac, about 4 down, there he is. They both died just shortly, probably after birth. And interestingly enough, I didn't point this out, but if you look at the volume number and the page number, they're both on the same volume and the same page, and they were twins. So Abraham and it makes sense, Abraham and Isaac, both twins that were born and died, and they're on the same volume and page number in their death as well. So sad, huh? So now like I say, now I'm getting worried about this family. So now I'm going to go look at the sources for William. So here are the sources for William, and I just took a snip. I think there were 20 something sources. I don't know if you're noticing anything here, but there are four 1851 censuses attached to William and Mary, and they're all different. Not the same William and Mary's. They're all different. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. And there are actually 2 1861 censuses that are attached, and they're both different as well. So that is a big problem, in my opinion. So then I went to the birth. Just go to edit. If you go to birth and just go to edit, it shows you the places that have been tagged as the birth of William Stadton. So we have a whole range of birthplaces here: Exeter, Plymouth, Woodbury, Stoke Cannon, Exeter again. So yeah, there's definitely something wrong here. Now, if you remember on the 1851 census that we decided was actually Charlotte's, showing Charlotte, he was born in Stoke Cannon. And so that fourth one down is probably the correct one. Then I did the same thing with Mary Cottle. So I went to her sources, and lo and behold, she has some children that she's attached to. In 1817, she's attached to Maria, who doesn't even show up as a child. She's also attached to a Samuel Stadton in 1824, who isn't listed as a child either. So there's a couple of problems there. And there's, as you can see, there's 1822, there's no marriage again for her. Oops, sorry. So, and then I went to her births, the births that were attached or tagged to her birth. And here we go. She's in Devon, Wellington, Somerset, Exeter, Comstock, and some others. So again, there's definitely something wrong here. I'm going to stop for a minute and ask if there are any questions before I go on. I'm almost done.
Yes, they wanted to know if you would just demonstrate how to print the family group sheet.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I'll have to go out.
Well, we can do that. We can do it at the end.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
that
do
would
it
be
at the
great.
end. Yeah, I always do that because then you can write on it and write, you know, if you find someone's attached to another child, you can just write there on the paper. I'm a bit old fashioned, I guess, that way. I know others would probably do it on their device, but yeah, I just, don't do it. Okay. So I'm concerned at this point that there's something wrong with this whole situation. So I plugged it into I use Find My Past and Ancestry quite a bit. I like Find My Past a lot for England. So I put in William Stadton, and I put in William Stadton with a wife of Mary, as you can see right there. This is in the advanced search. If you go into advanced search and Find My Past, you can specify you just want to look at marriages and the husband, spouse's name and his wife's name. Obviously, we don't know. I want to know how many. I'm doing the same thing I did for William Beaumont and Sarah. I'm trying to find out how many William Staddons married a wife named Mary during a certain time period. And so I put in 1805, give or take 10 years. I figured that was pretty safe. And so this is what came up. I got 26 results, and I put in Devon. I just didn't put in Broadcliffe. I put Devon because, we were all over the map with that family. And so here we go. There are some in Exeter, some in Elsington, some in Hemicott, Plymouth, Exeter. So there were 26 in all. So now we can see a little bit of what we're up against. We've got 26. Some of these are duplicates, obviously. The one in 1911 is all a duplicate. The one in 1921 is a duplicate, the Elsington one. But there are obviously more than one William and Mary Staddons that I'm dealing with here. So next, I looked, you can see my the little red check mark in the boxes, in the little circles. I checked all of them. I checked out every one of them. And guess what I found? I found a William Stadton in 1822 marrying Mary Percy in Hemiock. Now that made me wonder. I thought, oh my goodness, maybe Mary Cottle didn't get married at all. It wasn't didn't marry at all. Hemiock, I wanted to plug this in again to the maps. I want to show you how I use all these different resources to build the case. It's important to do that. Maps, censuses, marriage records, the GRO, how to build a case. So as you can see, there's Hemiock right there in the middle in the darkish purple. And Wellington, let me get my little pointer again, sorry. Wellington is right here. It's in a different county, but it's right next to, it's in Somerset, but it's right next to Hemiock in Devonshire where they got married. And so I thought, well, I need to check that out a little bit more carefully. So then I plugged in Mary Cottle to see if there was a Mary Cottle that married a William Stadton anywhere close to Wellington, Somerset, because apparently she was from Wellington. And I found absolutely no Mary Cottle marrying any William Stadton. So the case is building, in my opinion, for Mary Percy actually being the mother of those children, of all of the ones that, not all of the ones, because some of them weren't correct, but the ones that were born in Broadclyffe. So, but I did find Mary Percy that was born in Wellington, Somerset, in about the same year as Mary Cottle was, in 1803. There she is, and there's her parents, Thomas Percy and Jane Taylor, and she also has a sister. I didn't go into it very much in depth. There's probably more children born to Thomas and Thomas and Jane Taylor, but so I'm pretty confident now that Mary Percy is actually the mother, not Mary Cottle. Now, so here again is that 1851 census that shows them. We've already looked at that. But I wanted to show you also the 1841 census. This is another important point. Make sure you go to every possible record you can to find information. So this is William Stadton. It does say he's a Thatcher. He's married to Mary. He has a son, William, a daughter, Mary, a daughter, Elizabeth. And there's George, the one that we've seen before, as the youngest child in this case, because Charlotte wasn't born yet. She was born in 1842. And this is the 1841 census. So that pretty much gives a lot of the children right there. So this is what happened as I went through. Now, this took a long time to do. Can't possibly give you step by step on this. This is what happened, and this is who I eliminated from the family. John Stadton, born in 1820, was actually the son of William Stadton and Mary Carter, and he died in 1820. William Stadton, born in 1824, was actually born in St. Mary Church, which is by Torquay, and his father was William and his mother was Mary. I don't know her last name yet. Like I say, this is a work in progress. I still haven't accounted for John Gardner Stadton, haven't found him yet. William Thomas Stadton was the son of William Stadton and Mary Mortimer, another William and Mary Stadton. And Anne Stadton was the daughter of William Stadton and Elizabeth Narracott, and she was born in St. Mary Church. So I eliminated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But there was actually a William that was born to William Stadton and Mary Percy, but it wasn't the William that was attached to them. It was a different William. So now, as you look at this, this is how I've reconstructed the family. So we have Charlotte, Isaac, Abraham going from the bottom, George, Elizabeth, Mary, William, and John, and those for the family. Now, I think there's probably another child that was born before John, because they were married in 1822, more than likely. As I say, it's a work in progress. So this is the one that was an occupation was Thatcher. So we're going back now, if you can think back to those 4 1851 censuses that were all attached to William Stadton and Mary Percy. So here is the first, I'm going from, he was actually number 4. He was the 4th census that was the correct one. The 3rd census was a William Stadton and Mary Stadton, and that wife was actually, her name was Mary Trickey. They didn't have any children, and he was in lapidary. He dealt with rocks, so that was interesting. And I found him on the 51 census, and here he is again on the 61 census. Again, it says lapidary, and there's no children, as far as I can tell. And he was the one that was born in Woodbury. And there it is on Family Search. I'm just going to show you the documentation and then how it appears now on Family Search. William so these are some of the children that were born to them, that belong to them, and that were anyway attached to other people. William Stadton. Well, this is one that was the second census, 1851 census, that was attached to R. William Stadton. And he was a bootmaker. You can't see it very well, I'm sorry, it's just very faint. But he was a bootmaker, and his wife was Mary Coleman. And you can see here, there's a Samuel Coleman who's a visitor that kind of solidified that. So there was William, and there's his children. They were all at Exeter. The first 1851 census that appeared attached to R. William Stadton was this William Stadton, and his wife was Mary Carter. And interestingly enough, I didn't even realize that he was a hairdresser and a barber. And he had lots of children, and like I say, his wife was Mary Carter. And here he is on the 1861 census as well. He's listed as a hairdresser, and some of his children with him. The Samuel that was attached to Mary is right there. Anyway, there was just a lot of interesting things. By the way, I deconstructed the family on Family Search Beta. I didn't want to do it on Family Search because I wanted to show you it on Family Search, so I did it on Beta. So this is all on Beta. These family groups I'm showing you. So there's William Stadton and Mary Carter, the barber. He was a barber and a hairdresser. And interestingly enough, that Maria Carter that was attached to Mary as a daughter was actually the daughter of William Stadton and a second Maria Carter, who was married in 1816. The first one that was the hairdresser, married the hairdresser, got married in 1811. And this one was another Carter that married a Stadton. So how confusing can you get, right? Anyway, I've got to wind up here. I didn't touch on any maiden names in the US, but if you go to the wiki, the Family Search wiki, and plug in maiden names in the United States, there's some resources here for you. And also go to the Family History Guide. There's some great resources on the Family History Guide of how to find your maiden surnames of your wife, of the wives and mothers of your family. So hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, it took hours and hours, to be honest. It took hours to deconstruct all those families and put them all together, all the different ones together. So I couldn't show everything, but hopefully that was helpful at least a little bit.